Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Bands of Time, the Prophetico, and our special guest. Do I have you guys?
Yeah, I'm here.
How's it going, Brian? How's it going? Tonight we've got a special edition, I guess. My son and I got talking the other day about events as they're going to happen. Aaron likes to talk about what is to come. How does it mechanically work? How's it going to work out? And we got in this discussion, Bri, and I told him, well, why don't you write something up and we'll put this to video ASAP. We'll get this up and get it out. And it has been most fruitful today. He went ahead and put together a document for us. But Aaron, why don't you just jump right in here and describe our conversation the other day and how your mind got down that path. Just let everybody know, about our conversation, how we talked about it, and how you came to your conclusions, because they really are pretty interesting.
Well, see, I was talking about these four angels of the Euphrates. Especially, I was talking about those, their army, the 200 million soldiers of theirs. We were actually talking about a handful of things at the time. We were talking about what it means to have the sky roll up like a scroll, and at what rate that would happen. But since I was already talking about prophecy, I thought I might as well tell him my idea. Originally, when I came up with this hypothesis about the sixth trumpet and the four angels of the Euphrates, I actually was like making it for a story. I was trying to build it up to see how I would put it in a book, how it would all pan out. And if these demons if these soldiers in the Euphrates River trapped with these four angels be demonic entities, then they kind of sparked some ideas in my head about what they were here for, and what Azazel himself, the beast of the apocalypse, how he will wow, word escaped, sorry. Let me just explain my hypothesis. See, my idea is that when Azazel comes out of the abyss, of course, we are told in Revelation chapter 9, verse 5, it indicates that the locusts that come out with out of the abyss, they cannot kill anybody. They can only torment the people who did not have the mark of God on their foreheads. And see, that kind of made me wonder, why it was specifically 5 months that they could only do this. It specifically says that 5 months. And well, we also know that the Great Flood in the Bible says that it was 40 days and 40 nights. That's technically 5 months. And so that must raise a few eyebrows and a few questions that why really these angels are tormenting for 5 months. The sting, evidently, the sting of a scorpion seems to me like much more like a metaphor. Why their sting being, they are coming here and they will torment, and they'll be tormenting constantly over 40 days and 40 nights. But the one thing we can tell why they're probably going to be so violent over these years, imagine centuries and centuries and centuries, a millennia in the abyss. After all that time, they probably will have gained exponential hatred for mankind. And the book of Enoch clearly indicates, well, it says that the giants were, the angel Gabriel made all the giants kill each other right in front of the angels. Like Azazel was forced to watch his sons kill each other. This is also related to, in Ezekiel 32 verse 27, it says that the giants went down into Hades with their swords under their necks, which indicates that they slew each other. So we of course know that some of these demons weren't cast into Hades, or they weren't cast into Hades, but some of them were. And the book of Jubilees, chapter 10, says that there were some demons that were cast in to the abyss. I will read it. Okay, it says, in the third week of this Jubilee, the unclean demons began to lead astray the sons of Noah, and to make and destroy them. And the sons of Noah came to Noah their father, and they told him concerning the demons, that they were leading astray and blinding and slaying his sons. He prayed before the Lord and said, God of the spirits of the flesh, who has shown mercy to me and has saved me and my sons from the waters of the flood, and caused me not to perish, as thou didst the sons of perdition. It pretty much, after this, it pretty much goes into, he pretty much asks God to send all the demons into the quote unquote place of condemnation. But however, Mastema, who's basically, that word Mastema is pretty much Satan, derives from Satan. Satan himself comes and asks God to leave only 1/10 of the demons on earth, and 9/10 of them go into quote unquote the place of condemnation. And as I drew together in my paper, the 4 angels bound. In that paper, I was talking about how these demons trapped in Hades, or the abyss, which I figured was abyss was in Hades. I indicated that they may be these soldiers that are in with these 4 angels in the abyss. And it raised some questions. The Bible specifically says that when after we know that the 5th trumpet is when Azazel is let out, he does whatever he wants for 5 months, and then the 6th angel sounds, and the 4 angels come out, and it specifically says in Revelation 9 verse 15, and the 4 angels who had been prepared for the hour and the day and the month and the year were released, so that they would kill 1/3 of mankind. And the number of the armies of the horsemen was 200 million. I heard the number of them. And then so as you can tell, the difference between these angels and the ones who came from the abyss, that these can kill people. Azazel couldn't do that. And I imagine that once the time that went in between the 6th trumpet and the 7th trumpet was when Azazel came up, slew the 2 witnesses, and the world pretty much starts worshiping from there on. So according to this hypothesis, the false prophet in Revelation 13:11-12, he will make a pact with Azazel. He will make some sort of agreement with him, so that Azazel would become the great world idol and ruler who would save them. I imagine he will tell the people that he will give them comfort from the torment that God is giving them, which Azazel will come off as, yeah, I'm gonna save you guys, but we know what he's really wanting. He'll definitely get up there. He'll make himself look like he's the great savior of he's going to become their idol, and they're going to start depending on him, as as the Bible clearly indicates, they set him up in Babylon, and his throne is there. So once this takes place, I imagine the entire time, Azazel, if I were him and I was in the abyss for that long, I imagine I would not want to just have power. I would want to execute all that wrath that I had inside of me. So he's probably going to pretend that he's going to be beneficial to everybody, but he's the whole time going to be planning to kill some people. And once he gains everybody's trust, according to my hypothesis, once the sixth trumpet is sounded, and once the sixth trumpet is sounded and the four angels of Euphrates are released, and their monstrous army of 200 million will come out and start killing people with fire, smoke, and brimstone, as talked about in Revelation 9:13 through 19. And these armies of monsters, these demons, they will come in and once they start destroying people, it says that they will kill 1/3 of the population. And if Azazel knows that these demonic entities that have been trapped in Euphrates are his sons, he'll definitely just sit back, and he's going to let them kill everybody. And as the Bible clearly says in Revelation 17:16, it says they will it says that him and his horns will eat her flesh, will eat Babylon's flesh and leave her naked. Let me bring that verse up. It says, and the 10 horns which you saw, and the beast, these will hate the harlot, and will make her desolate and naked, and will eat her flesh, and will burn her up with fire. This is clear. This is a lot. It explains it, especially more in the chapter after it, in chapter 18. It goes on talking about how an angel says, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place of demons, and a prison of every unclean spirit, and a prison of every unclean and hateful bird. In Isaiah chapter 13, verse 21, it talks about the goat demons, or the satyrs, who will be inhabiting Babylon as well in the last days when it's made desolate. Also, it's talked about Lilith, which I assume is actually specifically one of Azazel's sons. And once these guys get here, I imagine Azazel will just say, everybody, this is a sacrifice for me, 1/3 of the population, and then I'll stop my sons from killing people. So he'll probably make it look like something religious. He'll make it sound like I'll save you if you give me this sacrifice of 1/3 of the population, which sounds very likely that he would turn upside down the what Jesus Christ did for us. He would turn it upside down and make it the wicked inversion of that. And so when Babylon is set on fire, the 10 kings and Azazel, though, I imagine this is some sort of sacrifice. What the fire is specifically said in this, that the sixth trumpet, when it's called, then these demonic entities, it describes them, their horses, kind of like chimeras that blow fire out of their mouth, and they kill people with this fire. It says clear, specifically, by the fire and smoke and the brimstone which proceed out of their mouths, they kill 1/3 of mankind. And so that's how I see the fire going on here. And that's my hypothesis.
Well, that certainly is a very interesting conclusion to come to. When we got to talking about it, it makes sense. The Lord our God tells us that he puts it into the hearts of the 10th king. And of course, I made the obvious observation, Aaron, that, well, how do you control that number? If somebody walks up to you and says, well, they're going to, kill, let's say, 1/3 of your town, if you have no options, how do you control that number? Well, of course, you set out to destroy the part that you want destroyed. It's the only way to interject your, how do I put that? Your dominion over the person that has authority over theirs. So when you put 2 and 2 together, ladies and gentlemen, let's just think about this. The 10 kings run the whole planet. And Azazel comes and says, I'm going to allow 1/3, I'm going to sacrifice 1/3 of you. And Aaron's right. That's the exact inversion of what Christ did. He sacrificed himself. Well, he comes up with, I'm going to kill, I'm going to sacrifice 1/3 of the people on this planet. How can the 10 kings make sure it's not their hometown or their country that gets slaughtered? They do that by burning 1/3 that they choose. And ladies and gentlemen, me and Brian's talked to you about this before. Geographically speaking, you're talking about the Western Hemisphere. That is 1/3 of this planet. Now look, when Aaron's like, well, I don't know about this, I don't know about that, I said, let's just do history. The New World has always been ran by basically 3 kings. The King of Spain, but he never came here. Okay? The King of England, he never came here, never lived here. And of course, the King of France. He never lived here. They never lived here. Even though everybody knows if you go up to Canada, you better speak French. If you come to America, you better speak English. And if you go south of the border, you better speak Spanish. Even though those kings never lived here. Never. They never lived here. So if you're going to choose, if you're going to be able to exercise some kind of control over who dies and who don't, it makes way too much sense, Bri. It makes way too much sense when you really think about it. So I want Brian's thoughts on this, even though, ladies and gentlemen, when Brian come on, everybody needs to say a prayer for Brian's mother. She had surgery today, so Brian stayed up and waited on the phone call to make sure she was okay. And when he come on, he just got thrown into this mix. Aaron and I was obviously overtly failing on trying to get the video going. Brian comes right in and it works. So I sent Brian the document that Aaron made on this. He titled it Azazel's Vengeance. And it makes so much sense coherently to the thought process that I thought that we should jump on and talk about it. But Brian, I know you're coming into this way late into the game, but what's your general thoughts on these things? Because to me, it makes a whole lot of sense to be coming out of the mind of a 15-year-old. It just completely blew me away. So your thoughts, buddy?
In agreement. You know, I'm kind of looking at something else at the same time here, and it kind of ties into a discussion we were having yesterday concerning the, well, biblically speaking, everybody, we would consider this the Gihon River. You know, of course, when we're looking at the situation with the Euphrates and where they're bound, there's other thoughts going through my mind here. As a whole, I would say tied into, you know, the overall projects that all three of us have been working on, maybe separately but in tandem nonetheless, because it's all really part of the same project, and it starts to all tie yourself back around to what's happening here. What's going on with these four bound at the Euphrates, with what's going on with the angelic, or with the beings that are trapped down there. You know, this draws me back around to some early discussions we had back when we started out. You know, where you're looking in the Bible and you have the Rephaim come up. You have, you know, you have different spots where it's listed where, you know, the slain had been down there, but these slain seem to come back up again. You know, and as Aaron is pointing out, you're dealing with something here that is, it's something that puzzles the mind most definitely at first glance. But when you really begin to break things down here, Aaron's conclusions are right on the mark. And I don't really know what to say beyond that. Everything is just, it's right here, everyone.
Well, I'd like to add on that when my dad said about them giving the least of their portion, well, in opposite of that idea, in opposition of the concept that maybe I believe that it's a little more of the opposite, the upside down of that. Azazel is going to say, you sacrifice the thing you hold most dear, which is exactly what God did with his son. He said, we all know that he sacrificed his only begotten son, and he loved him more than anything, and he sacrificed him for our sins. And in Azazel's inversion of this, he has everybody else die for his sons. And in my opinion, them setting Babylon on fire is probably where he says, either I kill you and your family, or I destroy that thing that you hold most dear in your dominion. And it specifically says in the Bible that they shall hold their dominion, the 10 kings shall hold their dominion for 1 hour, correct? They shall hold their dominion for a very short time.
Aces and eights across the board. I mean, like I said, it makes coherent, logical sense. This whole thing being played out, and that's what bothers me. Is that this puts a rhyme to the reason. It puts a rhyme to the reason, and what amazes me still is just the quite simple fact that these entities from the abyss have riders. Now look, you can say one way or the other, but at any stretch of the imagination, the beast is a non-human entity, no matter what you want to say, but their riders are displayed as humans here. So when you think about that and you wrap your mind around it, it makes you think of, well, when will be the trigger for all of these things? Why is this important in the greater scheme, the greater schemata? Well, when we go, of course, directly to the tribulation trigger, we go to the Emmanuel prophecies, and what does it say? Now, therefore, behold, the Lord is about to bring on them strong and abundant waters of the Euphrates, even the king of Assyria and all his glory. And it will rise up over all its channels and go over all its banks. Then it will sweep into Judah and will overflow and pass through it. It will reach even to the neck, and spread of its wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Emmanuel. Implementing isochronal eschatology, these two verses have no answer. Not ever. Not ever. We know that the prime chapter for the Emmanuel prophecies is, of course, the prior chapter to this, chapter 7. But this is chapter 8. The Emmanuel prophecies have always been twins. Always. Emmanuel is in chapter 7 and 8, even though none of the eschatological so-called experts want to tell anybody that. They only tell them about the one reference in chapter 7, not its twin, not its didymos, in the very next chapter, chapter 8. When you read this, you realize this is when everything gets triggered. Something is tripped. Of course, Aaron, you and I have talked many times about there is no time, there's no way you could create a dilation of time between Revelation chapter 7 or the sixth seal event and Revelation chapter 14. Time is topsy-turvy then, because at that point in time, we're going to be changing in RPMs and we're going to be changing in orbital velocity. You physically will not be able to keep time then. So you have to give a sequence of events, but as far as time's concerned, that's impossible. And time literally has everything to do with this. So, knowing this prophecy, and of course, the target, we just shared with everybody what the target is, exactly who he's coming after. Exactly the same ones who's going to be snatched out of their mother's womb and taken to Mount Zion. This gives you everything, this key as to why when the Assyrian crosses that Euphrates, when the false prophet goes across it, boom, baby, game on. Game on. And this is a perfect answer to that equation as to why the scapegoat says, tear it up for 5 months. You putting together this document, Aaron, and labeling it Azazel's vengeance is absolutely priceless. It's absolutely priceless. So we're going to have Brian post this, of course, with your document. He's already sent me back a corrected version of it. But Brian, your thoughts. I know you've already talked some about what Aaron said, but Also, your thoughts on why no eschatological experts wants to tell everybody that the Emmanuel prophecy is 2 complete chapters. Your thoughts on that, Bud?
Okay,
Can I leave you speechless,
I'm going to
Brian?
bypass one of these. That's all there is to it. I'm not touching the Emmanuel prophecy because, look, you just said it. I don't need to cover it. We know why they don't cover these things. I think that's really going to... they just don't. I wanted to go back to something you were saying prior to that, Matthew, because you were bringing up when time is topsy-turvy. Okay? We've talked about the mechanics of such. You know, I'm going to wrap this back around once again, everybody. We were talking about what? Okay, you're dealing with rivers. Now, as you can see here in this little tiny picture I pulled up, because I'm having almost an impossible time trying to find anything that even shows you the Euphrates River, which, why am I not surprised? But as you can see in this photo here, you've got how it stretches through. You know, coming up here, breaking between underneath Turkey, and then going through. We talked about Baghdad just the other day here with, you know, what we had just done on that program. But you've got the Euphrates rivers coming straight down and through Iraq. You got it topping out at Kuwait City. You know, so you can see here in this map a little well what's going on. I mean, here's some cities that are next to it. You know, we've got... This draws it in a little bit more. Now, in a private discussion Matthew and I were having yesterday, because there's been something going on in my mind with these rivers. And I'm not altogether certain why that was, you know, and I've gotten woke up actually multiple days running here with knowing I had to go back and look at these rivers. There's another river, though, that I've been working on in tandem, because obviously we've got the Euphrates here forefront and center right now, that we've had this Euphrates shield which just cropped up within the last few days here. So already our minds have been sort of focused on these rivers. We've talked about many times about the north as opposed to the east. But when we go back to the days of Noah, we know what? Well, Jerusalem is at the center or the navel of the earth. That's our measuring marker. That's how we know where to start the measure for the North Pole to put Jerusalem there. We talked about what's going to happen in the meantime. There's mechanics involved here. I've been working on something I don't know what other terms to use it. It's essentially called the Mina scale. But that scale is the key to unlocking a whole lot about time. And this is where Matthew and I began to talk about something totally separate, yet at the same time, because it's tied in. We're talking about the biblical river that is called Yahan, the Gahan. Now, these all run in tandem because Euphrates is obviously tied in with the Tigris River. You're talking about the land in the midst of the rivers. But there's been something very strange that's been happening throughout the course of time with this other river that's tied into this. Because, okay, we've got the name, it's either Amu Darya, which is the Oxus, but you'll find out on top of it that this Arabic word actually translates over to Gahan. And I don't know which one of these is, but somebody goes through and explains how this water course has been absolutely devastated time and time again. It keeps changing course. So the Lord is trying to relay something to us here. Now, when I talk about this Mina scale, everybody remember what it says there in Daniel, where it refers to mini to call Upharsin. Now you're told specifically that one of those measures 50. You have 50 shekels. That's what a mini is. It's 50 shekels. And then you have another set of 50 shekels. Now, when you take a coin, when you've been weighed in the balance and found wanting, well, one side of that measuring thing with the scale is going to have the correct weight of the coin. But when something is the improper weight, which means it's too little, that means that the scale that is holding that coin, that is the proper size, that's going to drop downwards. Okay, it's going to drop to the left if you've got the proper weight coin on the left-hand side. This is no different than what the axis of the planet is doing. Now, there's something very strange that happens with, at the time of Hezekiah, when the envoys come from Babylon. You're also told that something is going on there with Agahan going through Israel, where they built the waterways, basically, to the west side of David. But all of a sudden this gets strange. Because this is happening after the time of Ahaz's 10 steps. These kings of Babylon have, these envoys from Babylon have shown up to see his wonders. And yet this same word, this is not coincidence any longer. So you have a mechanic going on where you're supposed to see something with these rivers. Now, when we find out that, lo and behold, one of these rivers in the midst of the rivers has been changing its course continually and destroying everything in its path when it does so, this tells me that we've got a mechanic going on here while we're wobbling to and fro that also allows for these things that are bound under the Euphrates to be set free.
Okay, some lag time there. Sorry. I was sending a message to my son. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. You'll have that between father and son, won't you? My son's going to share something here real quick, but the only thing I'm going to do is bring into context what Brian is saying, because something's not of even keel here. Something has got the boat on the fluidity of the firmament of time. Something's not right. It is 2 Chronicles chapter 32 and verse 30 and 31. It was Hezekiah who stopped the upper outlet of the waters of the Gihon and directed them to the west side of the city of David. Hezekiah prospered in all that he did. Even in the matter, the envoys of the rulers of Babylon, who sent to him to inquire of the wonder that had happened in the land, God left him alone only to test him, that he might know all that was in his heart. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing me and Brian talked about this, I said, well, wait a minute, maybe it's not our city of David. I mean, why would Babylon send to inquire about this wonder of Hezekiah redirecting the Gihon? Now, I appreciate the simple fact that a lot of people say that's in Israel. It's just, why would they do that? That being the case, the first thing I brought up to Brian was maybe this is a different city of love, because it's also what David means. It can mean love, or it can mean pot or basket, which led us down a different road. Was there a city, a very famous Babylon city, that had a factory for maybe clay pots, or perhaps even metal cauldrons that you could boil water in? So in the midst of all these things, it's amazing, after all my life, Brian brings these two verses to my attention, and all of a sudden my boat that was on steady waters all of a sudden it's being tossed and turned aside in my mind, trying to put two and two together. I've looked at these verses in the Hebrew and the Greek 1,000 times, if not 10,000 times. And it's the first time I'd ever considered those things. So Aaron seems to have found something about the Gihon. Aaron, why don't you jump on here and share what you found, buddy?
Okay, first I would like to add that what you said about this other city of David, first of all, I would say that was Ariel. As we know, Isaiah clearly speaks about Ariel and calls it a city of David, am I right?
You are correct in that. Yes, he does. So it might have been a reference to a Babylonian city of the lions. I don't know.
Well, let me interject here. Let me interject here. Stop for a moment. What is that word aria? Where do we see that referred to in the Aramaic? Lion, you are correct, but where do we see that in Daniel? We've got that tied in with what? The Persian Empire. Multiple times you'll see that reference come up, but most specifically, you'll see it mentioned with Cyrus the Great. So there's something, you know, you just said something right on the spot of something I've been already considering and Matthew and I already had started looking at yesterday. So that's definitely some major food for thought, Aaron. Good stuff.
Thanks. As for what I was going to say about the Gihon, I found something. I found a website that shows me a map of where these two mystery rivers, the Pihon and the Pison rivers, that were talked about of Eden, that they came from Eden. Well, in this picture I'm looking at, it shows it connects where this river could have been, Gihon, where it could have been, and it shows the Red Sea, connects it with the Jordan River and the Red Sea and the Dead Sea together. Well,
let me interject something here quickly, because that where they're putting that in there, they're going with the assumed terminology of putting the Kush. They're trying to slide it towards the western side of the map. But there's a lot of confusion that, you know, when we start talking about quote-unquote Kush, the Bible tends to always want to, in the English, it always tries to throw Ethiopia in there. But everybody, you got to remember something. The sons of Cush inhabited a fairly large portion of land. So many scholars have now stated emphatically that you were talking about the region which we would sometimes refer to the land of, they will call it the Hindu Kush, etc. And now, this is where this river pulls in, because if everybody remembers, we've talked about, for instance, you look at the eastern tip of Alexander's empire as he was trying to go up into the plains and into the steppes. Okay, his whole eastern movement into this empire, it was all along this river. So we know that we have to have, we're looking at Eden for within the land in the midst of the river, and that's where they're going to, you know, that's where the confusion starts to come in, is a lot of these people are trying to slide that river as being towards Africa, and that's not, it's understandable when people are used to, you know, the Ethiopia being part of it. It's not to say that people from Kush, they are living there. You know, the people of Kush inhabit a very large portion of land. They always have. So this is where I think some of the scholars and the people that have been working on this for time immemorial have gotten themselves confused, is due to that fact that everybody wants to look at this place of quote unquote Kush. Well, that can only mean towards the land of Africa. So it's, it's an understandable thing on this. I'm just personally, from everything I'm found, I'm leaning towards myself, the Gahan actually being where I stated it is. It's also called, you'll find out it's called the Amu Dairu, or Daira is one name that comes up for it, and it's also referred to as the Oxus River. But sorry about that, I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. Well, I consider what you said as well. But why this stood out to me specifically is because they connected the Jordan River, the Dead Sea, and um, uh, I forget what valley there is between there. But there's a valley on that way through, and it goes, and it's on the way from Turkey, I believe, and then to the Sinai Peninsula through that little bay there between the Sinai Peninsula, and then connects it to the Red Sea. Why did this stick out to me? Well, because whenever I was doing my Euphrates, study, I looked at the kings of Siddim. It talks about in Genesis talks about a war of 4 kings against 5, and they went at Siddim. Where is Siddim? That's where the Dead Sea is. I had the idea that these demons had been trapped in this river. That connection would be in Siddim, if anywhere. If Siddim is a part of this hidden Gihon, or whichever mystery river this be, this either way, it has something to do with 4 kings, specifically 4 kings, which I connected with several biblical mentions about this, which I was seriously leaning towards this idea, but the fact that it was nowhere near Euphrates cut me off. But when you're talking about this Gihon River, Bry, it completely comes straight with me. See, this is my study. Okay, see, there were 4 kings that went to war with 5. See, there were 4 kings, and there was Chedorlaomer, Arioch, Amraphel, and what was the third one? I mean, the 4th one. I'm gonna have to bring Genesis 15, I believe, up.
If I would have known you were going to bring this in, I actually worked on this a few weeks back. I would say where you're looking, how you just brought up all that side of the map, going towards Jordan, going towards the Dead Sea, going towards the Red Sea, etc. Matthew, do you recall what's been happening in the Aden Gulf?
That's right, Aaron. That's what I was going to jump in and just say here real quick. What you're looking at, Brian and I's already looked at. What they're tracing out right there, that river, that's actually the Sheba Rift. That's where massive amount of volcanic activity is going right around the wilderness, straight up through Israel, right where you're looking at. That's where the Sheba Fault has actually been heating up the Red Sea. And of course, here of late, it's actually produced brand new islands, Aaron. That's what you're looking at right now. Underneath there is where that exact fault line is. So that's the only thing I want to jump in here, because me and Brian had been talking about this, and privately, I don't know, about a month ago maybe, but
Yeah, this has been ongoing for quite some time.
this has been ongoing, and you have a PDF that, I mean, he could be reading from right now. So it's just amazing, Aaron. But go ahead and finish your thought, buddy.
Yeah, because what you're about to do is it ties right in with everything we just brought in. So definitely go with this, because you're right there, dude.
Okay, here we go. Okay. From Genesis chapter 14, verse 1, it says, "It came to pass that in the reign of Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, and Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Thargal, king of quote unquote nations, they made war with Bela, king of Sodom, and Barsa, king of Gomorrah, Sennar, king of Adamah, and Sambor, king of Seboim, and King Balak, which is Segor." King of Balak, which is Segor. I'm reading from the Septuagint. all these met together at the Salt Vale, which is in Hebrew Siddim, which is now the Sea of Salt. That is the Dead Sea. So, well, what stuck out to me was these four kings. What the chapter 14 goes on to say is that these five that went to war with these first four, they had made some sort of deal with Shadalagamar, king of Elam. They had made some sort of pact. They served him for 12 years, and on the 13th year they revolted. And as a study I did with my dad here, we talked about how they probably these five kings to rebel against Shadalagamar, they probably were raising giants. Were raising giants because Shadalagamar, once they revolted, Shadalagamar goes straight to kill giants, which is indicated in verse 5 of chapter 14 of Genesis. Well, what I first did was checked with these four kings, the ones who were on Shadalagamar's side, and it's slightly kind of creepy how you look into it. Shadalagamar, which is in Hebrew Kadarlomar, in his Greek name, in the Greek name Shadalagamar, I see possibly Lagamar, a princess of Elamite origin, which is from this city Shadalagamar rules. There's a goddess in this region, and there seems, and the first part of his name, Kedar, would mean servant of Lagamar. I see an angelic entity here, and the way I see it, Shadalagamar is a giant himself. These four are giants. The second king, Arioch. There's a myth under the name Arius that is said to be the son of Ninus, the legendary founder of Nineveh. We know that Assyria built Nineveh because of Genesis 10:11. Assyria became the head of the Assyrian pantheon. Ninus, who's the father of Arius, is said to be the son of Baal, or Baal, whichever you pronounce it. It's also very interesting to me that in Paradise Lost, a story written by John Milton about the fall of the angels and the fall of man, it talks about Arioch being a demon, which really brings up questions in my head. Amraphel is the king of Shinar, Greek Sennar. In Genesis 11:2, it tells us that is where the Tower of Babel was built, in his kingdom. A tower found at Eridu has been assumed to be where the Tower of Babel is, because Greek Bible says that the Tower of Babel was made of bitumen, and the Tower of Eridu is made of that as well. It is said that Enki of Sumerian myth was supposed to live at Eridu, which is what Babel could be at. His temple was called Abzu, and Abzu was supposed to be the place where the gods lived, an equivalent of the abyss. It was in the Sumerian religion, if you read about it, it is clearly talking about that they were worshiping the angels of the abyss directly. But notice this, that it doesn't, you know how the Bible seems to talk about the smoke coming of a great furnace coming out of the abyss. It seems to indicate fire, as abyss is also talked of as Tartarus, equivalent with Tartarus, which is a fiery place as well. But in this belief, Abzu, where where Enki lives, is actually a place where water comes from, and all water comes from this sea, this place under the earth where there's a pocket of water, which is freakishly the other gods which live in this underground place called Abzu count as four: Enki, Namu, his mother, Damgaluna, and his wife, who is his wife, and Ismud, his advisor. These are four. These would be the angels of the Euphrates River. According to my hypothesis, these literally are that Abzu is another gateway to the abyss, except without fire, there is water there instead. This could be the place of condemnation in somewhere in Hades, where these demons and their four rulers are at. But as I said, this place Abzu can be reached in the place where this King Amraphel ruled, finally, Thargal, or title in Hebrew, called the King of Nations. The Hebrew translation tends to say King of Goim, but that means, but no one knows what that means. So, technically, he's called the King of Nations, and the Bible clearly talks about some king of nations coming up and making war. I forget where my notes are at. But yeah, the Bible does talk about some king of nations, and Thargal is called a king of nations right here. And as I pointed out, these four kings who went to war with the five at the battle of Siddim, that's why I was seriously leaning towards the idea of the angels of Euphrates being in this place, but it turned out to be something that would probably be the Gaihan instead, because the Euphrates is so far from it.
Well, actually, no, it's not. They're actually very close to one another, so you're actually looking in the right place. And let me add in something here real quick. Take note of, once again, let's go back to the locatatives here in Genesis 14, verse 1. Luckily I found that PDF like lightning speed and was able to pull it in and show what you were reading, and plus I already got all this underlined. Now let's look at this again. 14, verse 1. Aramphal, king of Shinar. Exactly as you just stated. Where's Shinar? The valley of Shinar was what? Where the tower itself was built. Now let me point out something quick here that's probably going to assist you so very much, as you brought up. You brought up the Tower of Eridu, but you also brought in where you've got the Sumerian equivalents within their lore, within their legends. I think it's kind of important to point something out to you here, because you're actually you're hovering right over it. You're actually right on the mark. You have to realize that you're talking about a twofold locative. You're being given a physical locative, but now that you brought the legend in, you're bringing in the secondary locative, which that secondary locative ties in with the location of the north when we go back to the days of Noah or prior to. So you're looking at, this is difficult to explain, because you brought in Ur-Adu, and most people don't realize on top of it, when you're making a reference, the Bible speaks of, the standard English has been basically stating that the mountains of Ararat is where the ark came to rest, but that's not what it says in the Hebrew, folks. It's always been the mountains of Ur-Atu, which is a location. Okay, so you're giving dual locatives. So the mountains of and as you brought in Ur-Atu, this battle actually can be traced to the physical battle itself that took place And the records have been found that back this up, so I'm going to have to get those in your hand somehow, Aaron. Let me take this another step forward, though. Let's go back over to Chedorlaomer. Okay, he was a king of Elam. Well, where is Elam? It's in the locative area that we know as modern-day Iran today. We have something else that's brought up here in Genesis 14, verse 5. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him came and defeated who? The Rephaim and Ashtaroth, Karnaim, Zuzim and the Ham, Emim and the Shavah, Karathaim. Now, I just brought that up earlier about the Rephaim. Now, where are you being told they're located? And Ashtaroth, what is Ashtaroth? What do we commonly think of? Immediately when you hear that word, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
The false goddess.
Exactamundo. Now we've got a twofold property going on here. Now we're getting a reference to a planet as well. This is all spinning full circle as it should. So, Aaron, you're right 1,000% on the mark here. And this is a battle here in Genesis 14 that is always draw my attention back to, because there is so much happening here and you cannot escape it. I mean, I know me and Matthew talked about this within the first year of us getting together, and we were having discussions, and I said 14, is obviously something that happened in ages past, but this whole chapter has utmost importance concerning prophetic events. So I think you're really onto something here, Aaron.
Well, I'm glad I get to put my 2 cents in edgewise, guys. Off the charts, ladies and gentlemen. No prep whatsoever. In reference to these things, Aaron was quite amazed to figure out why it was the Dead Sea was there. He was covering something up. Of course, you've all heard the Brian and I talk about Lake Van before, too. And the simple fact that I've alluded to it, but I guess it's time for me to share it. This would be alluding to the Abyss being a active volcanic fault line, breaking Earth's crust that produced fire, and that God put a cap on with water. That's why these allusions would be going back and forth, not only in the scripture, but as Aaron pointed out, with these legends and myths. One thing is for sure, what we've covered here tonight has been absolutely groundbreaking. And it's needed. This type of discussion is needed. Give me the facts. I don't want your theology. I really don't care about your opinions. You tell me what the Bible actually says, and then we can come together and discuss as to how it can be true. Not if it's true, how it can be true. This is what you do with the Bible and the history books. It's what you do. Aaron did this a few times in his conversation. He said that this place may be the Temple of Babel because the Septuagint clearly says it's made of a particular type of thing. On the ground, in the location he described, is exactly that thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to these rivers and these events and the timeline, it's enough to blow you away. It's suffice enough to say that the document that Aaron put together over there on the Bible source code, go look at it, he clearly defines historically, and he just said it again, which 4 angels are bound there at that Euphrates. We've talked about the events, both historic and future, as to what's going to come when the Emmanuel prophecies make perfectly clear when the false prophet spreads his wings and goes across that river and triggers a tsunami of events. These things are real. What comes up out of the abyss, it's real. They have writers. What Aaron brought light upon, and Brian talked about it too. Brian says one of the first questions he's had, well, why was there swords under their heads? How can they be there? How can the Septuagint says that there's going to come a day when they're going to come out? Well, because the Bible's true. That's why. That's why it says that. Because that's exactly what's going to happen. But just take note that you heard both Brian and my son going back and forth between the Hebrew and the Greek, because it's a binary code. It is physically impossible for God to speak in one language and relay to you all the information. He is God. So it took two languages. Brian mentioned earlier the Mina count. You have no idea. We're going to be probably covering that with Aaron at a later time. But ladies and gentlemen, let me check the time. Yes, it is way past Aaron's bedtime, and I am probably in a heap of trouble with his mother. So we're going to have to cut this short. But Brian is going to take the document that Aaron typed up. I didn't have anything to do with it, but Brian put it through spell checked, and he's going to check it. But he will post it with this post. You know, you just witnessed what Brian and I did with my 15-year-old son. This is what you all need to be doing with your family members. Please don't talk about the stock market. Don't talk about the baseball game. Get into the Word and start asking yourself, what did God actually say? And just accept it. You just have to accept it, and then He will show you how it's true. Not if it's true, how it's true. Brian, back to you, buddy.
Well, and I would like to add into what Matthew just said. I mean, everybody understand that when we have our conversations, that's what happens. We've been having quite a collection of people that are coming to our house that most in the church would consider the ones that, look, they're the lost. But my wife has been rather shocked because when they come over, 90% of that time is spent talking about the Bible. And I would say basically everybody around here can't wrap their mind around it. Well, folks, when it's the only thing you talk about it's second nature. When it's second nature, people begin to get pulled in. And I wanted to slide to one other thing before we got off here, because this is going to be a gift for Aaron that's going to be sent to him. I didn't even realize why I was looking at this book today. I stumbled on this, knew it was important. And I think this is something that's going to help. We just did a program not too long ago called The Wings of the North, and this concerns the wings, the vulture, but it also very deeply was connected to the mechanics of where the scapegoat, where Azazel is. And I was working, I opened this up today, I got up, had no plan, was going through my little Google book collection on my tablet, and I was like, I wonder what this is. I kept reading and going, why am I reading this? Why am I reading this? I'm going to point out a couple of real small things here it says in this PDF that I grabbed from out of the book real fast. It's pretty interesting. Here it says it was not unknown to the Scythians, for they are introduced by Justin saying that their native country was situated on an elevated spot higher than the rest of the world. This is in Asiatic Researches 316. The most remarkable feature in the system is Mount Meru. Now, this is talking about this mount of God, this sacred mountain. And the whole section basically was talking about this and the correlations that these researchers back in the 1800s found with looking at languages, looking at stories everywhere else in the world. Now, it goes on to say something down here in the next paragraph. Also, on top of it, when you bring in, starting here with this sentence, the latter accompanied the late Lama to China to give me an accurate journal of the march from Sisu Lumbu or Singling Tingri in the language of the Tatars and Mongols signifies the heavens, and even Tibet is called Tibet Tengri, or the heavenly country of Tibet. Now, who is Tengri? Well, every religion within those areas, within the Siberian steppes, is Tengri. That's their god of the heavens is named Tengri. Even their Bibles now use that name for God. So this to them, and this is exactly what the Scythian were telling you, we came from the mount that is spoken of where the gods have come together and they have their meetings. It's all throughout multiple texts, and this guy comes in and plainly tells you the Scythians are from this place because they were right at what? At the spot in Siberia, where once again, here you got the Mongols, Tengri. Now we're all wrapping back around to what we spoke about when we did that episode on the Wings of the North. Comes full circle. Now, I'll give you guys a couple seconds here to add something in if you're still here.
Well, I'm here, all right. Aaron, go ahead and say goodnight, buddy.
It was a real pleasure talking with you guys and doing Bible studies. Yeah, groundbreaking stuff. And I feel blessed to be able to come in here and talk with you guys about it and open some eyes. And God bless you guys. Good night.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's just about enough. I will say this, if this video has edified you in any way, please like, share, and subscribe. And in doing so, I pray that the Lord, our God, bless you. Till next time, ladies and gentlemen, Prophetico out. God bless. Godspeed.